My mom stepped on my nursing diploma and said, "Your sister needs the frame for her GED certificate." The diploma. Can you believe that the most important day of my life, my nursing school graduation, ended with my own mother grinding her dirty boot into my diploma? All because my sister, Kayla, had a nail appointment. It sounds like a bad movie, but it was my reality. I just stood there, jaw slack, watching her grind her heel right into my diploma. My diploma. For years. Night classes. 2 jobs. Raising my daughter, Zoe, alone. And she was making sure to smear mud all over my name, all over the official seal. "What are you doing?" I finally managed to gasp. She didn't even look at me, just straightened up, holding that mud-stained paper. "Kayla passed her GED test yesterday," she said, as if this was perfectly normal. "She needs a nice frame for the wall, so people know she accomplished something." And get this, she was talking about my frame. My diploma's frame. She actually bent down, examining the damage her dirty boot had done, and then said, "This frame is perfect. Real wood, not that plastic garbage from the dollar store." My heart started to race. "That's mine." I pleaded, reaching for it. "I literally just graduated 2 hours ago." But she pulled it away, shielding it like I was the thief. "You already have a job at the hospital," she dismissed me. "Kayla needs this for her interviews at the mall. First impressions matter." Then the ultimate insult. "Besides, nursing isn't even that hard. You just follow doctor's orders all day." I watched, horrified, as she yanked the diploma from the frame. It ripped right down the middle, half stuck under the glass, the other half fluttering to the floor like a dead bird. "There," she said, holding up the empty frame, admiring it. "Now Kayla can put her GED in here and hang it in the living room where everyone can see it." I felt tears welling up, a hot sting behind my eyes. "Mom," I choked out, "I worked for 4 years for that degree. I missed holidays, birthdays, studying for exams. I have $30,000 in student loans." I was on my knees, trying to piece together the torn fragments of my hard work, wondering if tape could fix the gaping wound she'd inflicted. Her response? A cold, dismissive glare. "And Kayla," she said, as if it were a mic drop moment, "worked for 3 weeks to pass her test. That's determination. You've always been jealous of your sister's achievements." She literally walked past me, still on the floor, to grab a dish towel. She needed extra time to find herself, and now she's ready to shine. You should be supporting her instead of making everything about you. I was stunned. Kayla, 28, who dropped out of high school to party, just now finished her GD, and my mom called that exploring her options. "Not everyone needs to follow the traditional path like you did," she said, polishing my frame until it gleamed, as if I was the one who was wrong. "Some people are special and need room to grow at their own pace. Besides, you can just print another certificate online. They're all digital now anyway. Kayla only gets 1 GED certificate, and it needs to be displayed properly. Like my entire achievement was just a disposable piece of paper." And then my sweet 6-year-old daughter, Zoe, came downstairs. She'd heard the yelling. In her hand, she clutched the glitter and sticker-covered congratulations card she'd made me at school. "Grandma, why is Mommy's paper ripped?" she asked, her voice small, picking up a piece from the floor. My mother, without missing a beat, snatched it from Zoe's hand and tossed it into the trash. "Your mom is being selfish again," she told my innocent daughter. She won't share with Aunt Kayla, even though Aunt Kayla needs this frame for her important certificate. Zoe, bless her heart, looked so confused. But Mommy just graduated. My teacher said she should be proud. My mother just patted Zoe's head, as if imparting some profound wisdom. "Your teacher doesn't understand family dynamics, sweetie. Your Aunt Kayla has struggled more than your mom, so her accomplishments mean more. Getting a GED at 28 shows persistence. Getting a nursing degree is just following expectations." That was it. That was the moment. Something snapped inside me. "I'm taking Zoe, and we're leaving," I said, my voice shaking but firm. I scooped Zoe into my arms, grabbed my car keys. But my mother, of course, blocked the door. "You can't take her," she shrieked. "I already told Kayla she could babysit tonight to practice for her interview at the daycare center." I stared at her in disbelief. Kayla? Babysit Zoe? Kayla had never watched any child in her life. "That's discrimination," my mother declared, crossing her arms, acting like the victim. "Just because someone doesn't have experience doesn't mean they can't do a job." She even defended Kayla getting fired from the grocery store for stealing food, calling it corporate exploitation. As if daycare would be different. As if working with children was Kayla's calling. Just then, the doorbell rang. My mother practically lunged to answer it. And there was Kayla, in pajama pants, stained t-shirt, at 3 in the afternoon. "Did you get my frame ready?" she asked, not even bothering to look at me. I pushed past my mother. Zoe clutched tight to my chest. I had to get out. My hands were shaking so badly at the doorknob. I almost dropped my keys twice. Zoe buried her face into my shoulder, clinging to me. I could hear my mother's shrill voice behind me. "You're being dramatic. Selfish. Making a scene over nothing." The door finally gave way. I flew down the porch steps to my car. My mother followed, still screaming. I ripped open the back door, trying to buckle Zoe into her car seat. My fingers wouldn't work. The buckle slipped. Over and over. My mother was at the car now, banging on the window, demanding I stop. Zoe started to cry, asking what was wrong. Click. Finally, I slammed the door shut. My mother moved to block the driver's side. I yanked my door open anyway, forcing her back. She grabbed the door frame, trying to stop me. I pulled harder. She let go. The engine roared to life on the second try. I reversed fast, watching her jump out of the way. In the rear-view mirror, I saw them. Both of them. Standing there in the driveway, watching us leave. My heart hammered. I drove, not knowing where else to go, until I found myself in the parking lot of the hospital where I was supposed to start my new job in 3 days. My hands were still shaking. I just sat there, engine off, staring at the employee entrance. Zoe's cries had quieted to little sniffles in the back seat. "Why was Grandma so mean about my special paper?" she whispered. My heart ached. How do you explain pure malice to a 6-year-old? I tried to sound calm. "Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements, sweetie. Grandma was having a bad day, but Zoe wasn't buying it. Is Grandma mad at us? Did we do something wrong?" My throat tightened. I took a few shaky breaths. "No, baby. We didn't do anything wrong. Mommy is so proud of your congratulations card." Then the inevitable question, "Where are we going to sleep tonight?" I had no answer. "We'll figure it out," I said. "Everything will be okay." But I had no idea if that was true. Suddenly, a tap on the window. I jumped so hard I hit my knee on the steering wheel. It was Fiona, from orientation last week. She looked genuinely concerned. I rolled down the window, tried to speak, but only a weird, choking sound came out. She opened the car door, crouched down beside me. What happened? And then everything. The diploma, the boots, the ripping, the cruel words, the fact that I had nowhere to go. It all poured out, ugly and raw. Fiona listened, silently, handing me tissues from her pocket. Zoe was quiet in the back, mesmerized by a game on my phone. "Do you have family or friends you can stay with tonight?" Fiona asked. I shook my head. Fiona, a stranger, was the closest thing I had to a connection. "You can stay at my place tonight," she said. "We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." I started to protest, to say I couldn't impose, but she cut me off. "I have a spare room. It's no trouble." She gave me her address, told me to meet her after her shift. I thanked her, probably 5 times, my voice thick with emotion. She just smiled. "That's what coworkers are for," she said. "A lifeline." Fiona and I, with Zoe, arrived at her apartment building around 6. It was small but clean. filled with photos of her daughter. She immediately set Zoe up with goldfish, apple juice, and cartoons. My daughter, bless her heart, seemed perfectly content. Fiona, on the other hand, sat me down at her kitchen table, a glass of water in front of me. I tried to reassure her. I just need one night to figure things out. But then the stark reality hit me. "Where's all your stuff?" she asked. "My clothes. Zoe's clothes. All our important documents. Everything. Still at my mother's house." I had nothing. Fiona asked about my new nursing job, my start date. Then the inevitable. "Do you have money saved for an apartment?" My stomach clenched. $800. That's all I had. Not enough for first, last, and a security deposit anywhere in this town. It felt like a sick joke. Fiona didn't judge. She just pulled out her phone, started texting. "My mom knows a landlord who sometimes helps hospital employees," she said. I felt like I was drowning, and someone had just thrown me a rope. A thin rope, but it was something. Around 7, my phone started buzzing. Relentlessly. I pulled it out. 12 new text messages, all from my mother. The first, "You're overreacting. Come home now." The second, "Kayla's crying because you ruined her special day." Then, selfish. "Immature. Apologize to both of us." The messages kept coming, a relentless barrage of guilt and blame. "I raised you better than this." "You're setting a bad example for Zoe." Family doesn't abandon family over small disagreements. She even doubled down on Kayla's hard work. The last one was a threat. "If you don't come home tonight, I'll assume you're keeping Zoe from her grandmother on purpose. I'll call the police for a wellness check." I showed them to Fiona. Her advice was simple. Ignore them. She's trying to guilt you. I put my phone on silent, face down on the table. The buzzing stopped, but the words echoed. An hour later, the doorbell rang again. Fiona answered it, and in walked an older woman, a carbon copy of Fiona, but with streaks of gray. Her mother, Shirley, carrying a casserole dish. Shirley listened to Fiona's quick summary, then came over and shook my hand firmly. She knew a landlord, Bill, who sometimes waived security deposits for hospital employees. She'd call him first thing in the morning. And then she looked at me, her eyes filled with a sad, knowing compassion. "You shouldn't go back to your mother's house if you don't feel safe there," she said. I tried to downplay it. "Oh, my mother's not dangerous, just difficult." Shirley's gaze didn't waver. "Emotional abuse is still abuse," she said quietly. That word, abuse, it hit me like a truck. I had never, ever thought of it that way. Not my mother. Not my family, but the truth of it resonated deep inside me. Shirley promised to help me get back on my feet, told me I didn't have to do this alone. We ate her delicious casserole, Zoe coloring peacefully at the table. It was the first time in hours that I felt like I could truly breathe. Later that night, I lay awake on Fiona's couch, staring at the ceiling. Zoe was asleep in the next room, the apartment silent save for the hum of the refrigerator. Shirley's words, "Emotional abuse is still abuse," replayed in my mind. And suddenly it all clicked. The times my mother chose Kayla over me, my high school honor roll ceremony, missed because Kayla needed a ride to her boyfriend's, my acceptance to nursing school, dismissed as a waste of money. Zoe's birth, overshadowed by my mother talking about how Kayla would make a better mother someday. The diploma wasn't an isolated incident. It was the crescendo of a lifetime of being second best, of my accomplishments being diminished while Kayla's every whim was elevated. I'd spent years, trying to earn my mother's approval, and now I knew it was never going to happen. That realization, that devastating truth, hurt worse than watching her destroy my diploma. I cried silently into the couch pillow, trying not to wake anyone. The next morning, from Fiona's kitchen, I called the hospital HR department. I spoke to a woman named Morgan, trying to keep my voice steady as I explained my housing emergency. To my shock, Morgan told me about an employee hardship fund, a short-term loan up to $3,000 specifically for new employees like me. Low interest, paid back through paycheck deductions. A real chance. Hope started to bloom. I thanked her, feeling like maybe, just maybe, this could actually work. Fiona came in, and I told her the news. She was genuinely thrilled. She made eggs and toast, and we were just sitting down to eat when a sudden, thunderous banging started on the apartment door. It was so loud. Zoe ran out of the spare bedroom, eyes wide with fear. Fiona told her to stay put, then looked through the peephole. She turned back to me, mouthing a single, chilling word. Mother! My stomach dropped. How? How had she found us? The banging grew louder. My mother's voice, shrill and accusatory, pierced through the door. Come out right now. Stop embarrassing the family. The neighbors are going to think I'm a bad mother. Fiona, incredible Fiona, pulled out her phone. I thought she was calling the police, but instead, she just opened the door, just wide enough to block my mother's view of the apartment. I heard my mother's voice escalate, demanding to know if I was inside. Under the table, Zoe grabbed my hand, squeezing it tight. Fiona, in the calmest voice, told my mother I wasn't available and she needed to leave the property. My mother screamed, I have a right to see my daughter. Fiona stood her ground, one hand on the door frame. This is private property. You're trespassing. Leave, or I'm calling the police. My mother called Fiona every name under the sun, tried to push past her, but Fiona held firm. She reiterated, If you don't leave, I will call the police and file a report for trespassing and harassment. Fiona started dialing, and for the first time, my mother's yelling stopped. I heard her angry footsteps retreating down the hall. Fiona waited a long, tense minute before slowly closing and locking the door. She came back to the kitchen, asking if I was okay. I just nodded, shaking uncontrollably. Is Grandma going to come back? Zoe asked, her voice barely a whisper. No, Fiona said firmly. We're safe here. But my chest felt tight, an iron band squeezing my lungs. She knew where Fiona lived. She could come back. She could show up at the hospital. At Zoe's school. My hand started shaking, and I couldn't catch my breath. A full-blown panic attack. Fiona sat next to me, her voice calm, counting out loud, guiding my breathing. Zoe, my brave little girl, held my hand, asking if I was okay. The panic wouldn't recede. Fiona brought me water, made me sip it slowly. We need to talk to your supervisor at the hospital, she said, before your first shift. Security needs to know. I hadn't even considered that. My mother could just walk in. 'Cause a scene in front of patients, coworkers. Fiona made another call. Shirley, her mother, was coming over. We were going apartment hunting. I protested. It's too soon, but Fiona was resolute. The sooner you have your own place, the safer you and Zoe will be. Shirley arrived an hour later, a folder crammed with apartment listings. She was older than my mother, moved with a surprising energy, and her smile felt so genuine. She even hugged me, something my own mother rarely did, and told Zoe what a brave girl she was. We left Zoe with Fiona, and Shirley drove us. The first place was in a questionable neighborhood. Broken windows, trash in the parking lot, stained carpets, crooked cabinets. $900 a month, plus $1,000 deposit. No way. The second was cleaner, but still required over $2,000 up front. My $800 wouldn't even cover it. The third was a basement apartment, moldy smell, and a landlord whose stare made my skin crawl. Shirley, sensing my discomfort, grabbed my arm and pulled me out. She drove us across town to an older, well-maintained building, a landlord she knew. It was a small one-bedroom, tiny kitchen, clean bathroom, just enough space for Zoe's bed and a small living area for a couch. $800 a month, and because Shirley vouched for me, he'd waive the deposit just first and last month. $1,600. Still more than I had, but it was possible. A tiny, tangible possibility. Back at Fiona's, I filled out the hardship loan application on her laptop. Every field felt like a confession. My emergency situation. Leaving my mother's house unexpectedly. How much did I need? $3,000. Enough for the apartment and some basic furniture. My new nursing job, my license attached. Applications reviewed in 48 hours. I hit submit and immediately felt sick to my stomach. I had just graduated, just achieved this incredible thing, and here I was practically begging for money. All that hard work, all those years striving for independence, and now this. But then I looked at Zoe playing quietly. She needed stability. She needed a safe place, far away from my mother's chaos. This wasn't about my pride. This was about protecting my daughter from growing up the way I did. It had to be done. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Zoe's school. My stomach dropped. Someone had called, claiming to be me, saying my mother had permission to pick up Zoe. They wanted to verify. Absolutely not. I told them only I was authorized. The secretary, thankfully, sensed something was off. I called the principal, explaining my mother might try to take Zoe, that under no circumstances was anyone else to pick her up. I grabbed Zoe, drove straight to the school, filling out paperwork, making myself the only authorized pickup. The principal promised to inform all staff, confirmed they'd be vigilant. The fear for Zoe was constant. My first nursing shift started at 7 a.m. I dropped Zoe at the before-school program, then drove to the hospital, stomach churning. My supervisor, Giles, a kind-eyed man in his 50s, showed me around. I tried to focus, but my mind kept racing. What if my mother showed up here? What if she caused a scene? I kept messing up charting, distracted, terrified. Giles noticed. He pulled me aside, asked if everything was okay. I hesitated, then gave him the short version of my family crisis. He listened silently. When I finished, he didn't judge. He offered to adjust my schedule, ensure consistent shifts for Zoe's routine. And he promised to inform security, making sure my mother couldn't access my work area. Some of the crushing tension finally eased. A little. That afternoon, my phone started buzzing again, a fresh wave of texts. From Kayla this time. "You're ruining my life," she shrieked in text. The daycare wouldn't hire her because I wouldn't let her use Zoe as a reference for childcare experience. I was selfish, always jealous, couldn't stand to see her succeed. More texts. "You think you're better than me with your nursing degree. You always looked down on me. Mom was right about you." It was the same old song. I blocked her number, forced myself to focus on my patients. But those texts, they stung. More than I cared to admit. A part of me, a small, foolish part, still hoped Kayla would somehow wake up, see the toxicity, want a real sister. But not today. The next day, Fiona came with me to my mother's house to get our things. My mother was supposedly at work. But when we pulled up, my stomach sank. Garbage bags, piled on the front porch. Stuffed, full of my clothes, full of Zoe's toys. We were trash. She'd thrown us out. My key wouldn't work. She'd changed the locks. I knocked hard, desperate. Through the window, I saw her, sitting on the couch, watching TV. She saw me, and turned away. Fiona put a hand on my shoulder. "Let's just take the bags," she said. We loaded them into her truck, the physical act heavy with emotional weight. Back at Fiona's, we went through the bags. My nursing textbooks, gone. My laptop, gone. Several of Zoe's favorite toys, gone. Then I found it. A note in my mother's familiar, damning handwriting. "You don't deserve nice things if you abandon your family. I gave you everything, and you threw it back in my face. Kayla needs the laptop more than you do for her job search." I crumpled it up, threw it away. Fiona insisted we file a police report. "Documentation," she said, "for everything." At the station, the officer seemed bored at first, but as I listed the textbooks, the laptop, the missing toys, estimating over $1,500 in value, he grew serious. He took photos from my phone as proof. He warned me they couldn't do much about family disputes, but documentation was crucial for a potential restraining order. He gave me a case number, a copy of the report. Leaving, I felt a flicker of something. Not relief, but a small sense of being seen, of having proof. That evening, while cooking dinner at Fiona's, my phone exploded. A group chat. My mother, Kayla, about 15 other relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins I barely knew. My mother had sent a sprawling, victim-blaming message. I'd abandoned her after everything she sacrificed. I was keeping Zoe away out of spite. She didn't deserve such a cruel daughter. Then the messages started pouring in from the others. Why are you being so mean? Family sticks together. Be grateful. I felt sick. None of them knew. None of them knew about the diploma, the harassment, the abuse. My mother had painted her perfect victim narrative, and they'd swallowed it whole. I started typing a furious response, then stopped. What was the point? They'd never believe me. They'd always believe her. I left the group chat, blocked every single one of them. It felt lonely but necessary. The next morning, Shirley arrived with her truck and 2 friends. We loaded our meager belongings from the garbage bags, plus the thrift store furniture she'd found. A scratch dresser, a small, wobbly kitchen table, a futon that smelled faintly of basement but was clean. The new apartment was on the 3rd floor of an old building, tucked away near the highway where rent was cheaper. 1 bedroom which I gave to Zoe. The living room with its futon was mine. The kitchen was tiny, the bathroom had rust stains. But it was ours. No one could walk in and destroy my things here. No one could tell me I didn't deserve what I'd worked for. Zoe, bless her heart, ran from room to room, thrilled to have her own space. She picked her corner by the window, carefully arranging her few remaining toys. I made her bed with the thrift store sheets Shirley had brought. Then Zoe found it, that glitter card she'd made me for graduation. She carefully taped it to her wall. To remind me my mom is really smart, she said. I had to walk out of the room, turn away, before she saw the tears streaming down my face. My daughter, my reason. My first nursing paycheck arrived 2 weeks later. Most of it went straight back to the hardship loan. After rent and utilities, I had a measly $300 left for everything else. Food, gas, Zoe's school supplies. I stood in the grocery store doing mental math, trying to make every penny stretch. Rice and beans, pasta, chicken legs instead of breasts, store-brand everything. Zoe desperately needed new shoes. Her toes were practically poking through her sneakers. A decent pair cost $40. I put them in the cart, took them out, put them back, took them out again, left them on the shelf. We'd make her old ones last. Somehow, I bought Band-Aids and duct tape instead, imagining patching the holes, patting the inside so her feet wouldn't hurt. At the register, watching the total climb, I felt physically sick. $212 for 2 weeks of groceries, after compromising on everything. The cashier asked if I wanted to donate $1 to the children's hospital, and I, a nurse working at that very hospital, had to say no. Walking to the car, watching another mom load brand-name items and fresh fruit into a shiny new SUV, I wondered, what does it feel like to not calculate every single purchase? Then the nightmare started. 3 nights in a row, Zoe woke me up crying, screaming. My mother chasing us, taking her away, being mad at Zoe for being bad. I held her close on the futon, trying to explain that grown-ups have problems that aren't about kids. That grandma's anger was about grandma, not about her. But how do you tell a 6-year-old her grandmother is toxic without making her feel like she's lost something? How do you explain that leaving was protection, not punishment? I kept my voice calm, swallowed the angry words I wanted to scream about my mother. Did we do something wrong by moving away? Zoe asked, her little voice cracking. No, baby, I whispered. We did something right by finding a safe place. Does Grandma still love me? That one twisted my gut. Yes, I said, because it was the answer a child needed to hear. even if I wasn't sure it was true myself. She fell back asleep, holding my hand, and I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had irrevocably damaged my daughter by exposing her to that house, to that chaos, for 6 long years. Saturday morning, Fiona knocked on my door, a huge cardboard box in her arms. Her daughter had outgrown clothes. Zoe could have them. I tried to refuse, pride stinging. I didn't want to be a charity case. But Fiona just walked past me, calling for Zoe. They dumped the box on the floor. And Zoe tried everything on like it was Christmas morning. Jeans that actually fit. Shirts without stains. A winter coat that wasn't 2 sizes too small. I tried to pay her. Fiona just waved her hand. "That's what friends do," she said. Friends. The word hit me. Weird. I'd never really had friends. My mother in high school would always find something wrong with anyone I brought home. Too loud. Too quiet. Too boy crazy. Not boy crazy enough. Her comments eventually drove everyone away. In nursing school, I was too busy working, studying, surviving. I'd convinced myself I didn't need friends. I had family. But my family, as it turned out, was the problem all along. Fiona stayed for coffee. For the first time, I felt like I had a real friend. Even after I blocked them, my mother's social media posts started appearing in my feed. Friends of friends sharing her drama. Long, rambling paragraphs about ungrateful children who abandon their parents after everything that was sacrificed. Daughters who forget where they came from. Grandchildren kept away for no reason. She never used my name, but she posted old pictures of me and Zoe from when Zoe was a baby. The comments poured in, sympathy, support, telling her she deserved better, that kids these days have no respect. I read every single one, my stomach churning. None of them knew. None of them knew about the diploma, the harassment, the abuse. My mother had created a story where she was the pure victim, and I was the cruel villain. And everyone believed her, because that's what they always did. I closed the app, deleted it. I didn't need to see that anymore. My phone started ringing off the hook while I was giving meds, during my lunch break, documenting a chart. I ignored it. Eventually I checked. 17 missed calls, 17 voicemails, all from my mother. The first one was crying, confused. "I don't understand what I did wrong. I love you, I miss Zoe. Let's talk like adults." The second, angry, "You're dramatic, selfish, poisoning Zoe against her grandmother." The third, back to crying. They toggled between guilt trips and threats. Then, in voicemail number 12, a chill ran down my spine. Grandparents' rights. She'd been talking to a lawyer. She had rights to see Zoe whether I liked it or not. I sat in the break room, shaking. I called Fiona. Her advice, block the number. Immediately. She was manipulating me. I blocked it. The silence that followed was strange. Relieving, yes, but also terrifying. Like the calm before another storm. Tuesday at the nurse's station, an older woman approached me. My mother's sister, who I'd met twice in my life. She was worried about my mother. I needed to forgive and forget, because that's what good daughters do. My mother made mistakes, but Zoe needed her grandmother. My face burned. Patients nearby. Other nurses pretending not to listen. This was my workplace. "I'm not discussing this here," I said, quietly but firmly. She persisted. "I drove an hour. You owe me 5 minutes. Your mother is falling apart." I repeated, "You need to leave." Her voice rose. Disrespectful. Unreasonable. Then Giles, my supervisor, appeared. He looked at me, then at her. I nodded. He called security. She argued, loudly, all the way out, threatening that I'd regret this. Afterwards, Giles pulled me aside, asked if I was okay. I said yes, though I was shaking. "Anyone else shows up," he said, "you tell me immediately. The hospital has policies about harassment." His support was a quiet anchor in the storm. Then, an email from Zoe's teacher. A meeting. Concerns about Zoe's behavior. My stomach dropped. I spent the night agonizing. The teacher, kind and young, told me Zoe wasn't in trouble, but she was withdrawn, not participating, sitting alone. I explained everything, leaving my mother's, the attempts to take Zoe. The teacher, taking notes, updated the authorized pickup list. She asked about a counselor. I admitted I was looking. I left that meeting feeling like a complete failure, failing to protect Zoe, failing to help her process this mess, failing to give her a normal childhood. The next day, Morgan from HR stopped by my workstation. She mentioned the hospital's employee assistance program. 6 free therapy sessions. My first thought, therapy? That's for people with serious problems. This is just family stuff. I told her I'd think about it, but she left the number on my desk anyway. I stared at that piece of paper for 3 days. 3 days of internal debate. Finally, I called, made an appointment for Thursday, and immediately regretted it. But I didn't cancel. The therapy office was sterile, beige. My hand shook filling out the paperwork, especially the part about my mother. Abigail, with kind eyes and gray hair, led me to her office. "What brings you in today?" she asked gently. And then the dam broke. The diploma. The boots. My mother blocking the door. Kayla showing up in pajamas, expecting to babysit. Everything. It all poured out, a torrent of pain and anger and disbelief. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Abigail just sat there, handing me tissues, waiting. When I could finally speak, she asked about my childhood, the difference in how my mother treated me versus Kayla. I told her, always coming second. My high school graduation missed because Kayla had a dental appointment. Paying my own way through nursing school while my mother funded Kayla's concerts and clothes. Abigail took notes. "What you're describing," she said softly, "sounds like patterns of narcissistic parenting." She said my mother saw Kayla as an extension of herself and me as a source of support. She said my guilt, my obligation, were normal responses to emotional abuse. Abuse. That word. I flinched. "My mother never hit me," I said, almost defensively. Abigail explained. Emotional abuse is real abuse, even without physical violence. Destroying my diploma? An act of aggression, meant to diminish me. Using Zoe as leverage? Manipulation. I left that session feeling raw, exposed, but also strangely lighter, like someone finally truly believed me. 3 days later, I got home from my evening shift, and there she was, Kayla, sitting on the steps outside my apartment. She jumped up when she saw me park. I locked my car doors instinctively. She ran over, banging on the window, crying, makeup streaked down her face. I cracked the window an inch. "Mom kicked me out. I have nowhere to go. You have to let me stay. We're sisters. That's what family does," she wailed. My mother kicked her out? For being unreasonable about getting a job? An ultimatum, then changed locks. The classic playbook. Through the crack in the window, I said, "I can't help you." Her face, in an instant, morphed from tearful sadness to pure rage. "You're a terrible sister. Always thought you were better than me. Selfish. Cold." I got out of my car, walked towards the building entrance. She followed, still screaming. I got inside, and she grabbed the door before it closed. "You need to leave," I told her. "I'm not leaving until you help me," she shrieked. "I'll call the police," I said. She laughed. "You won't. Then everyone will know what a horrible person you are." I pulled out my phone, started dialing. That's when she finally backed away, still yelling about what a disappointment I was. I got inside, locked the door, my hand shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice. I was still standing there, shaking, when my neighbor from across the hall, an older gentleman named Cullen, came out. "Are you okay?" he asked. I automatically said yes, but I wasn't. He'd heard the yelling. I just nodded when he asked if that woman was bothering me. Cullen, a retired teacher, lived alone. He promised to keep an eye out, told me to knock on his door if I ever felt unsafe. I thanked him. Having someone, a neighbor, looking out for me, it made the apartment feel less isolated. I still checked the locks 3 times before I could even think about dinner. My second therapy session. Abigail listened to my story about Kayla, the guilt I felt for not helping her, even knowing it would have been a disaster. "We need to work on boundaries," she said. "You are not responsible for fixing your mother or your sister. Protecting yourself and Zoe is not selfish." She gave me scripts, simple phrases for when family members tried to guilt-trip me. "I understand you're upset, but I can't help with that." Or, "I care about you, but I need to protect my own well-being." We practiced them. They felt incredibly awkward. Abigail said it would be uncomfortable at first, this whole boundary thing, but the guilt would fade. I wanted to believe her, but that guilt felt like a permanent fixture, something I'd carry forever. Thursday evening, an unknown number called. It was my mother's sister. My mom was depressed, not eating, and I needed to fix this. My chest tightened. I used one of Abigail's scripts. "I care about my mother's well-being, but I can't have a relationship that harms me and my daughter." My aunt scoffed. "Dramatic. Every mother makes mistakes. Family forgives." I repeated I couldn't help. Her voice sharpened. "Selfish. Cruel. Your mother sacrificed everything." I said I had to go, hung up. My hand shook. Zoe looked up from her homework. "Are you okay, Mommy?" I nodded, rushed to the bathroom before she saw the tears. Saturday morning at breakfast, Zoe asked about Grandma. Her school play was in 3 weeks. Could we invite her? My heart sank. I explained that Grandma wasn't being kind and we needed space. "Is Grandma still mad about the frame?" she asked. "It's more complicated than that," I said, "but kind of yes." Zoe just nodded, went back to her cereal. She didn't push. She didn't ask more questions. She just accepted it. That scared me more than if she'd thrown a tantrum. What else had she absorbed? How much dysfunction had she witnessed without me realizing? Fiona invited us to dinner at her mother Shirley's house that Sunday. I almost said no. People were exhausting. But Zoe got excited. Shirley's house was small, warm, alive with photos. Fiona's dad, her brother, his wife, all there. They talked over each other, but it was friendly. They laughed. Shirley asked about my nursing work, genuinely interested. No one interrupted. No jokes at my expense. Fiona's brother listened, truly listened, to Zoe talk about her science project. I sat there, watching them, and it hit me. This was what a healthy family looked like. People who cared, who supported, who didn't keep score. The contrast with my own family made my chest ache. Then, Tuesday night, a call from an unknown number. I answered. It was my mother, frantic, angry, calling from someone else's phone. Kayla had been arrested. Shoplifting. I needed to bail her out. "This is your fault," she screamed. "If you'd helped her, she wouldn't be stealing." I took a breath. "No," I said. Her voice rose to a shriek. "You're abandoning your sister. She could go to jail. You're heartless. Selfish." "No," I repeated and hung up. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall, trying to convince myself I'd made the right choice. The guilt was a rock in my stomach. Kayla in a cell, scared alone. But bailing her out wouldn't teach her anything. She needed to face consequences. Logic. Emotion. 2 completely different battles raged inside me. Friday. Zoe's school pickup. The staff looked nervous. The principal pulled me aside. My mother had been there 20 minutes earlier. Tried to take Zoe, claiming permission. The school followed protocol, called my blocked phone. They refused to release Zoe. My mother made a scene, screamed about grandparents' rights, threatened lawyers. Security had to escort her off property. My stomach plummeted. They brought Zoe out. She ran to me, wrapped her arms around my waist, shaking. Why did Grandma try to take me? Why was she so angry? That was it. The final straw. I told the principal I needed all the documentation. I was filing for a restraining order. She nodded, promised to be extra careful. Zoe held my hand the entire drive home. The next morning, I went to the courthouse, folder in hand, police report from the school incident, screenshots of texts, voicemails, photos of my destroyed diploma, hospital documentation, the school statement. I handed it all over. My hands shook as I filled out the forms, detailing every incident. The clerk told me a judge would see me within the hour. I sat in the hallway, watching other broken people, wondering if my story was written on my face. When they called my name, I felt like throwing up. The judge, an older woman with tired eyes, listened patiently. I stood there, answering her questions, describing my mother destroying my diploma, the relentless harassment, the terrifying attempt to take Zoe from school. My voice cracked when I spoke of Zoe's fear. The judge examined my evidence. It felt like an eternity. Then, she signed the temporary restraining order. 3 weeks until the permanent hearing. Document any violations. Report immediately. Walking out, I felt strange. Relieved, yes, but also this crushing guilt. Like I'd just done something terrible to my own mother. Even though I knew, deep down, I was protecting my daughter. That night, Zoe woke up screaming. Again, crying about Grandma trying to take her. I held her, turned on the night light, told her she was safe. Grandma couldn't come to her school anymore. Why is Grandma acting so mean? She asked. How do you explain toxic to a 6-year-old? I told her people we love sometimes make bad choices, that it hurts, but it's not our fault. Does Grandma still love me? Yes, I said, but love doesn't always look the way we think it should. She had the same nightmare for 3 more nights. During the day, she seemed okay, but she started sleeping with her light on, checking the locks before bed. My mother had made my daughter scared in her own home. I hated her for it. Then the letters started. 5 days after the temporary restraining order, my cousin delivered the first. Pages of my mother's handwriting. Blame. Tearing the family apart over a picture frame. Begging. Mrs. Zoe so much, can't sleep. Anger. Ungrateful. You'll regret this. I put it in a plastic bag, added it to my folder. 2 days later, another. Shorter. Same pattern. Blame, guilt, threats. Documented. A week later, a third. With baby photos of Zoe. How much she loved being a grandmother, and how cruel I was. I photographed every letter, then drove to the police station. The same officer from the school incident. He looked at the letters, his expression serious. Clear violations, he said. He'd file reports, forward them to the prosecutor. He gave me his card. Call immediately if she showed up. I left, feeling watched, always looking over my shoulder, knowing she was out there, trying to find ways around the order. That afternoon at therapy, I told Abigail about the letters, the police reports, the crushing guilt every time I documented another violation. Who, Abigail asked gently, is choosing to violate the court order? My mother, I said. Who is choosing to harass you through relatives? My mother. Who is choosing to ignore a judge's ruling meant to protect me and my daughter? Tears streamed down my face. I knew what she was doing. I knew she was right, but it still felt like I was hurting my mother. Abigail was firm. My mother had options. Respect the boundaries. Get therapy. Work on herself. Every choice to violate the order was hers alone. I wasn't responsible for the consequences of her actions. I nodded, but the guilt, that heavy, undigested rock, still sat in my stomach. 3 weeks later, the permanent hearing. I wore the nicest clothes I owned. My folder, bursting with evidence, felt heavy. At the courthouse, there they were. My mother and Kayla, dressed up, hair done, makeup on, like they were going to church. They looked like respectable people, wronged by an unreasonable daughter. My mother saw me, and her face contorted into that familiar mask of sad hurt as if I was the villain. Kayla glared, whispering. I sat on the opposite side of the hall, waiting. When my name was called, I walked in, stomach churning. My mother and Kayla followed. The same judge. My mother's lawyer went first. He painted me as an overprotective daughter, keeping a loving grandmother from her only grandchild. A misunderstanding over a picture frame. My mother. A mistake in a moment of excitement. It made me sound vindictive, cruel. Then it was my turn. I walked to the table, opened my folder. I showed her the photos of my destroyed diploma, the boot print still visible. I played the voicemails, the threats, the emotional whiplash. I read Kayla's hateful texts. I presented the school statement, the police reports, the documented attempts to take Zoe from school. And then the 3 letters, the blatant violations of the temporary order, delivered by unwitting relatives. The judge looked at everything. She asked my mother's lawyer if he had a response. He stammered. She didn't understand the technicalities, Your Honor. The judge looked directly at my mother. Did anyone explain what a restraining order means? My mother admitted yes, but she thought it was just about not showing up in person. The judge's voice was firm. No contact means no contact, through any means, including third parties. Then she signed it. Permanent. 3 years. Any further violation would result in criminal charges. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt everything at once. Relief, finally, for the legal protection. And profound grief. Grief for the mother I'd always wanted but would never have. My mother passed me in the hallway, her voice sharp. You'll regret this someday. Zoe will grow up and see what kind of person you really are. Kayla hissed a word I won't repeat. I just kept walking. Got to my car. Sat there for 10 minutes, hand shaking, before I could turn the key. I had protected Zoe. I had protected myself. But I had also accepted that the person who raised me would never change. Never see what she'd done. It felt like mourning someone who was still alive. 2 days later, Kayla found me on social media. A message. Apologetic. Sorry things got so bad. I want to fix our relationship. A tiny, foolish spark of hope ignited. Maybe she was finally growing up. Then I kept reading. The message twisted. Accusations of jealousy, of turning our mother against her, of owing her money for emotional distress. The same old script. I blocked her. She found me on another platform. Same pattern. Apologetic, then angry, demanding. I blocked her everywhere. I told Abigail about it. Admitted I'd hoped Kayla would eventually understand, see the toxicity. Abigail's question was simple. What evidence do you have that Kayla wants to change? I had none. Every interaction was the same. She wanted something from me, and if I didn't give it, the rage flared. 3 months after moving out. 3 months. And I could finally breathe. My work at the hospital became a comfortable routine. Giles, my supervisor, understood, giving me shifts that aligned with Zoe's school. The hardship loan was being paid back. There was even a little money left over each month, enough to not panic at every unexpected expense. Zoe, my precious girl, was happier. The obsessive lock-checking stopped. The nightmares, fewer and fewer. She made friends at school, talked about them endlessly, asked if they could come over for a play date. And I said yes. I felt a surge of pride, knowing I could offer her that. A home where she felt safe enough to invite friends. The apartment was small, the furniture second-hand. But it was ours. No one here would destroy my things. No one would make Zoe feel bad for simply existing. That mattered more than any nice stuff. Cullen, my kind neighbor, knocked on my door one Saturday. A neighborhood barbecue. Kids for Zoe. I almost said no. Being around groups still drained me. But Zoe heard, and her excitement was contagious. So we went. 15 people. Kids running. Cullen introduced us. Everyone was friendly but not nosy. They asked about my work, actually listened when I said I was a nurse. Zoe instantly connected with a girl from her class. They ran off. I stood there, talking about normal things. Jobs, the weather, the broken elevator. No questions about my family. No need to explain myself. After an hour, Zoe ran up, beaming. She'd made a friend, someone I didn't quite catch. Playdate? The other mom smiled, gave me her number. I said yes, and felt something close to normal for the first time in months. The next week, I called my nursing school. A replacement diploma. $50. 6 weeks. I paid it, even though that money was earmarked for groceries. When it arrived in its pristine cardboard tube, I bought a simple black frame from the discount store and hung it on the wall in our living room. Staring at it, a wave of defiant triumph washed over me. I was taking back what was mine. Zoe came over, looked at it. "It looks really nice up there," she said, "where everyone can see it." "It's staying there forever," I told her. "Nobody is ever going to touch it." She just nodded. She understood. 2 days later, Giles offered me extra weekend hours. One of the nurses was cutting back. I said yes almost before he finished speaking. The after-school program now offered Saturday care. That extra money meant I could pay more on my student loans. That first extra Saturday, coming home with an additional $200 in my paycheck, it felt like breathing room, like I could finally, truly breathe. My therapy session with Abigail that week was profound. She called it grief work. I was confused. No one had died, but she explained. I was mourning the mother I always wanted to have, the one who would have been proud of my nursing degree, celebrated with me, chosen me sometimes, not always Kayla. Accepting that that mother didn't exist and never would was a kind of death. Protecting Zoe from the same treatment wasn't mean. It wasn't holding grudges. It was me being a good parent, breaking a cycle. I cried through most of that session, but afterwards I felt lighter. The following week, Zoe's teacher, Mrs. Anderson, called me in for a meeting. I went, convinced something was wrong, but she smiled. Zoe was doing much better, happier, and she'd started helping other kids who looked sad or left out, inviting them to play, sharing her snacks. I sat there, listening, and it hit me. My daughter was learning what true kindness looked like. Learning that standing up for yourself didn't make you mean. It made you strong enough to help others, too. A quiet, powerful victory. A pale blue envelope arrived on a Tuesday. My aunt's return address. My mother had had a health scare, the letter said. Needed family support. Would I reconsider the restraining order? I read it twice. Then I called my aunt. Calmly, I explained my mother had other family, friends from church. But I couldn't be that person anymore. My aunt argued, but I cut her off. My decision was final. I hung up. My hand shook for 10 minutes, but I didn't cry. Fiona and I had lunch that Saturday. 2 hours just talking. She told me she was proud of me, remembered finding me crying in the parking lot. Said I seemed like a completely different person. I disagreed, but she pointed out the undeniable. My own place, managing money, standing up for myself. Building a life, not just surviving. Having someone see my progress. Someone who wasn't being paid to listen meant everything. She hugged me when we left. I'm glad we're friends, she said. I was too. My 6-month work anniversary. I took Zoe to her favorite Italian place. Appetizers, dessert, things we normally skipped. Zoe, between bites of pasta, told me she was proud of me for being a nurse. My teacher asked what our parents did for work, she beamed, and I got to tell everyone about you. Looking at her, I understood. She was learning what real success looked like. Not my mother's version, where praise came for the bare minimum, but the version where you worked hard, earned things, and felt good about what you accomplished. The next week, Shirley came by with a folder. A hospital scholarship program. Pay off some student loans if I committed to 3 more years. We filled out the application right there. 2 weeks later, accepted. $5,000 off my loans. Not everything, but enough to make monthly payments manageable. I called Shirley, bursting with thanks. That's what friends do for each other, she said. Early December, Abigail and I had what she called a breakthrough. We were talking about the restraining order, the lingering guilt. What exactly do you think you should have done differently? She asked. I couldn't answer, because I had tried everything. Boundaries ignored, hurts dismissed, chances offered only to be refused. My mother had countless opportunities to change, and she chose not to. The restraining order, Abigail said, wasn't me giving up on her. It was me finally accepting who she actually was, instead of clinging to who I wanted her to be. Something clicked. The guilt didn't vanish, but it got quieter. After that session, Zoe and I started Friday night movie nights. Popcorn, blankets piled on the couch, whatever animated movie she picked. On the second movie night, she snuggled into me, whispered, "This is my favorite place to be." Not the movie, not the popcorn, just here, in our apartment, just the two of us. I kissed the top of her head. We had built something good, from all the broken pieces. Our little apartment, with its second-hand furniture and discount store frames, was more of a home than my mother's house ever was. We were okay. We were going to be okay. The next week, Fiona told me she'd seen my mother at the grocery store. Greasy hair, worn clothes, talking to herself, putting back bruised apples because they cost too much. Something twisted in my chest. A part of me, the old me, wanted to rush to her, make sure she was eating. But the new me knew I couldn't save someone who refused to admit they needed help. I thanked Fiona and went back to my patient charts. That afternoon, I picked up Zoe from soccer, helped with math, made dinner in our little kitchen. The life we were building mattered more than the one I left behind. 2 days later, I searched online for support groups. I found one for adult children of narcissistic parents. I stared at those words for 10 minutes. Then I filled out the contact form. The leader called that night. I could just listen, she said. I didn't have to share. Tuesday came. My hands shook on the steering wheel as I drove to the community center. 8 people sat in a circle. Coffee and old books. I introduced myself, said I'd recently cut contact with my mother. A woman across from me just nodded, like she understood everything. For an hour I listened. Holidays ruined. Accomplishments dismissed. Blamed for things that weren't their fault. Every story, so familiar. My throat tightened. When it ended, 3 people told me it gets easier. The nodding woman hugged me. 5 years no contact, she whispered. Finally sleeping through the night. Driving home, I felt less alone than I had in months. I saved the next meeting date in my phone. 5 months after leaving my mother's house, I had saved enough for a small trip. "Zoe," I told her, "we're going to a state park for the weekend." She jumped up and down, pure joy. We packed sandwiches, juice boxes, her favorite bear, hiking trails, a lake, campfires. Zoe held my hand, skipping through the woods. She asked about every tree, and I made up answers when I didn't know. That night, roasting marshmallows, her face sticky with sugar. She looked at me in the firelight. "This is the best adventure ever, Mommy." Something warm spread through my chest, deeper than the fire. We slept in the tent, listening to crickets. Woke up to the sunrise over the lake, eating cereal from plastic bowls. "I want to come back here every year," she said. "Our special place." I promised her we would. Money's still tight, I still have moments. Sometimes at 3 a.m., I wonder if I should have tried harder with my mother. I still grieve the relationship I wanted. The mother who'd be proud of my nursing degree. Help with Zoe, be a normal grandmother. But that version of her doesn't exist. Never did. But Zoe? She's thriving. Making friends. Learning healthy relationships. I'm building a career at the hospital. Even got a promotion with better hours. Thanks to Shirley. We have Fiona and her family. Cullen, my watchful neighbor. The people in my support group who just get it. I'm learning that the family you choose matters more than the family you're born into. Protecting my peace isn't selfish. It's necessary. For both of us. We're going to be okay. We are okay. Have you ever had to draw a line with family to protect your peace? What was that like for you? Share your stories in the comments below. I'd really love to hear them.